Buenos dias. It's my first time in El Salvador. It's a beautiful country, and I was very impressed with all of those stories of those companies doing extraordinary things. You know, living in the U.S., you don't learn much about what's going on in certain parts of the world, you know, but it's really thanks to the efforts, I think, of this organization, Thomas, your leadership, and all the people in this room that you are really leading the way, I think, compared to many countries in having a consciousness around the planet. In many ways, Central South America really are the stewards of many of the natural resources, the rainforests, you know, the lungs of our planet, all the incredible rivers and so forth. So I'm really delighted to be here with you today and to share some ideas about how we can build on this foundation to rethink business at an even deeper level that goes beyond the environment, which is critical, but there are many other elements to business. So I'm going to share the story of conscious capitalism, a movement that we started in the US in 2008. So it's already been 16 years, and it's spreading globally. We have chapters in about 24 US cities and about 15 other countries, including we have 11 chapters in Brazil, we're in Mexico, we're in Spain, in Israel, Peru. I was just in Panama. We're about to start a chapter there, Costa Rica, etc. So the subtitle here is, the fonts have changed. When I checked the presentation earlier, the fonts were different, but I don't know if they can change that now. Okay, it might look a little funny, okay, because the fonts are different. But my subtitle here is Awakening to the Healing and Caring Spirit of Business. Business is not just about making money. Businesses have a tremendous impact on our lives, on our health, on our children, on our future, on our mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-being. And so we have to think about all of those dimensions. Business is one of the most complex and human activities that we engage in. And how we approach it makes a big difference, you know. So the metaphor that you see here is the intermediate stage between a caterpillar and a butterfly, right? We're all familiar with the metamorphosis, right? It's a magical thing that happens in nature. So we start out as human beings, even we're kind of like caterpillars, right? We can't do much, all we can do is consume. But you think about the caterpillar, when it goes into that shift, nature turns on what I call imaginal cells. And then it essentially dies to its old self, it enters that cocoon, and then emerges a few weeks later as a different kind of creature, a creature of light and beauty, but also one that spreads flourishing in the world. Butterflies do the cross-pollination, right? That enables nature to flourish and therefore enables us to flourish. Right? So it's a different way of thinking about what is our existence. It is just caterpillar, which is just consuming. We can all be good caterpillars, right? I mean, that's what marketing tells us to do in many cases, right? Just buy as much, consume as much. That's what life is about. No. We can also evolve and become creatures of light and beauty in the world. And we can spread flourishing in the world as we live our own lives. And that's really the journey, I think, that we can choose to be on. The caterpillar doesn't have a choice. Every other species on this planet has no choices, right? We are the only ones with a choice. So we can choose to evolve, or we can remain stuck living like caterpillars, which is we die, you know, with a bunch of stuff, and we haven't really left any positive impact in the world. And the same is true of organizations. We can define their purpose to be purely about profit maximization, taking in natural resources, financial resources, human resources. By the way, human beings are not a resource, okay? We are the source. We should not refer to human beings ever as a resource. Resource is like a lump of coal. I use it, it's gone. It's ashes. Human beings are the source. Everything that you see here existed in a human mind before it came into physical reality, right? So we have to, but you can create companies that take in all those and then just create money for the owners, right? And some products and services. Or we can allow corporations also to evolve in their consciousness, to become entities that spread light and beauty in the world and enable flourishing on a broad scale, not only for humans, but for all life. Because all life is interconnected, right? And that we have to be the stewards of that. So capitalism is one of those ideas that a lot of people don't understand very well. You know, in some countries, like if you're born into a country that has capitalism, free markets, free people, you take it for granted. But actually, it's a relatively new idea. Capitalism in its modern form is only about 200 plus years old. So if you look at most of human history, the reality for human beings was that we lived in extreme abject poverty. What does that mean? 90% of human beings lived on less than $1 a day. And per capita incomes globally averaged $400 to $500. And you could go back another 10,000 years, it was similar to that. It only started changing. We had Renaissance, we had the invention of printing, we had Newton, Galileo, science, all of these things, but it did not impact ordinary people. Most people were struggling to stay alive. They were illiterate, uneducated, struggling in the farms for the most part. What changed was a few things that happened during the 18th century, starting with the Industrial Revolution in Scotland around 1760. Now, still today, that's considered the greatest technological leap human beings have ever taken. We've had many other leaps after that, including what's happening right now with the AI, but this was perhaps the biggest one because it allowed us to produce at volumes which we could not imagine. Before that, everything was made one by one, right, by hand. Now we had machines that could make 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more products. And with that, affordability went up, more people could buy them, and people had higher incomes because they could work in factories instead of on the farm. So that resulted in a small increase in living standards and more people having access to goods and services. But that itself would not transform human society. You also needed a different way to think about how to organize society. That also came from Scotland, surprisingly. It's a little country that has given us a lot. I thought it was Scotch whiskey and golf, okay, but they also gave us the Industrial Revolution, the Scottish Enlightenment, and a moral philosopher named Adam Smith. There were no economists in the world at that time. That profession did not exist. But he was a moral philosopher, and he asked the question, why do some countries become rich and others remain poor? And most people would have said, well, it has to do with natural resources, right? If you have a lot of minerals and oil. He said, no, that doesn't explain anything. What he found explained prosperity was freedom. Societies where individual human beings had greater personal freedom, that they could actually focus their lives on what they were passionate about, and what they enjoyed doing, and they could trade easily with each other. That the government created the conditions of freedom and free trade. That people would sense and meet each other's needs, and the market, the invisible hand of the market, as he coined it, would allocate resources, would set prices. The government doesn't need to do all that. Central planning doesn't work, right? People acting out of freedom and their own perceived best self-interest, that is what leads to prosperity. So this is one of history's great breakthrough ideas. Because human beings want freedom, and human beings want to live in prosperity. And those two are connected. It's not a trade-off. In fact, they are deeply connected. Right? So this was a breakthrough idea, but you could not apply this in Europe. European societies were very class-based, right? And very stratified. There was no social mobility. You were either born into the landed gentry or you were born as a peasant, and you could not change that in your lifetime. So we needed a laboratory to apply these ideas. And that same year, 1776, that he published that book, was the birth of the United States as an idea before it became a country. Now, as far as I know, the US is still the only country in the world that exists because of a set of ideas. And the ideas revolved around freedom. Initially, it was religious freedom, people escaping persecution from Europe, but also then economic and political freedom as enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, where the common man was in charge of his own destiny by right of law, where you could rise from nothing to great heights through your own hard work. You didn't have to be born into anything. You were born in a log cabin and you could become a president or an industrial tycoon. And by the way, it only did apply to men. Women did not have the right to vote for another 140 years, could not own property. It did not apply, of course, to the slaves. It did not apply to the indigenous population, but it was still revolutionary. First society where ordinary people, in a way, were in charge. And that combination, the technological breakthrough, the intellectual breakthrough, and the oxygen of freedom that you found in the US and then spread back towards Europe and other parts of the world, enabled humanity to take off. So you can see per capita incomes have gone up. After being flat for thousands of years, they've gone up about 3,000% in 200 years. Our life expectancy was about 28 to 30 overall, if you factor in child mortality and so forth, and plagues and diseases and wars. Now it's about 73. The percentage of people living in extreme poverty was 90% 200 years ago. Now it's below 9%. And literacy was 14%, and now it's above 90%. So think about the quality of life. And now we are 8 billion people. We were only 1 billion 200 years ago. So many more people living longer, fuller, more human lives because of this one idea, what we call capitalism, modern capitalism, free market capitalism. So we have to acknowledge that this is one of the most significant leaps we have ever taken to create a different way of organizing our lives and of organizing society. But we also have to look at where we are today. And we are living at a time when the amount of confidence that people have in business, especially big business, corporations of any size, publicly traded companies, has been going down. So even in the US, which is generally seen as the home of global capitalism, you can see that this year actually, only 16% of Americans have confidence that businesses will do the right thing for our future, for the planet, for our children, right? And for their customers, for their employees. And most people don't think they do. Most people think businesses are selfish and greedy and evil. That's a common perception, even in a very capitalist country like the US. Have you ever seen a movie in which the business leader is the hero? Business leader is usually the villain, right? In most popular culture. So there's something wrong with the story of business as people perceive it in society. Why is that? Well, you start to see some of the statistics around it, right? So 7 out of 8 Americans feel, my company doesn't care about me, the human being. I'm an accountant, so they care about the work I do and whether it results in profits, right? But who I am and what I'm dealing with in my life doesn't matter. So it feels a little dehumanized to a lot of people. And then if you look at the financial side of it, in the long run, we have lifted so many people out of poverty. Just in India and China alone, 1.5 billion people have been lifted out of extreme poverty, almost to the middle class, right? But if you look at what's happening recently, in the last 30, 40 years, the situation has reversed a little bit. So before the pandemic, when the US was at a time of economic boom, it was shocking to learn that 40% of Americans had less than $400 in the bank account. And if they needed $2,000, they had a small emergency, your car breaks down, your heating system breaks down in the middle of winter, your child gets sick, you don't have insurance, they would not be able to come up with $2,000 within 30 days. Even asking their employer, their family, their friends, nobody has. 2/3 of Americans work hourly jobs and 50% live paycheck to paycheck, with both husband and wife working. In a rich country, right? Imagine in other countries, because of the way our capitalist system is currently functioning. And you see in this part of the world, income inequality, which globally, this is called the Gini coefficient, that's one measure of how unequal incomes are. You can see global average is 38, but all the Latin American countries are higher than that. Dominican Republic, 38.5, Brazil at 52. I was just in Panama the last few days, that's at 50. Where's El Salvador? Oh, it's at the, well, you're doing better actually. You're at the global average, right? But we want to be better than average, right? And scenes like this are common all over the world, certainly in Central and South America, right? The favelas and then the luxury developments. And you start to see now a reversal in the long-term trend. Whereas we have been successful at reducing poverty, dramatically so in the last century or 2 centuries, in the last, this decade, 2012 to 22, that included part of the pandemic, right? You can see that poverty has gone up. More people are poor. There are people who escape poverty and then they fall back into poverty. It's not a one-way street, right? So there's something going on here. Of course, Venezuela is up there at 90% now because of the change that they've had, right? The systemic change. But overall, that's a very negative picture. Argentina has gone, to 36%. And that shows up then in the political realignment. You see a big move towards the left and the rise of populist leaders, mostly from the left, in some cases from the right, in some countries in the world as well, right? Why? Because the pain is real. People are suffering. Life is hard just to get by, right? And therefore, leaders are tapping into that. Now, they don't have the right answers, but they are diagnosing, the symptoms that people have. So there are many global challenges. Income inequality, I mentioned, is one of them. Of course, climate change. We're all intensely aware of that. I was supposed to fly to Tampa tomorrow, and our Tampa airport might have 10 to 15 feet of storm surge, right? This second hurricane in 2 weeks. So yeah, there's a lot. Nature loss, all of the species extinction that's going on, the deforestation that has happened, the soil that is no longer usable, arable land, right? All of that. And then the rise of public health crises, obesity and diabetes is at an epidemic level in many countries throughout South America, Latin America, India, where I come from, right? You see heart disease rising rapidly. You see cancer exploding. Today, 46% of Americans who are alive will get cancer in their lifetime. That's expected. This used to be a rare disease. And then mental health crisis, anxiety, depression, drug addiction, suicides, all these are going at a rapid rate, right? So something in our modern world, the way we are creating society, the value systems that we are promoting is actually not working very well. It's working in some dimensions. We have more products and services, but many other things. Life is not just about money, right? Money is not the only game in town. There are many things that make life worthwhile, right? So we have to focus on all of those. And many of these global challenges that we face have been made worse by the way we do business. We have to acknowledge that, right? All human beings, we didn't know what we didn't know, and therefore we did things to achieve certain goals, but these are the side effects. And I'll come back to that idea. Is there such a thing on this planet called a side effect? No, I don't think so. But these are the effects of how we do things, right? So we have been part of the problem. We need to be part of the solution. There is no solution without business. Okay? Businesses account for most of the activity in the world that results in impacts. So I would argue that traditional American-style capitalism, which has been exported everywhere now, which is very short-term oriented and very financially focused. It's next quarter, bottom line, share price, earnings per share, right? It's not working as well as it needs to for ordinary people and for the planet. It's working very well for 20 to 30% of us, extremely well. Right? Stock market has been up, many other things. But it's not working well for ordinary people. And it's certainly not working well for the planet. And without the planet, what do we have? We can't all go to Mars like Elon Musk. I wouldn't even want to go to Mars with Elon Musk, would you? That would be hell, right? But it's not working well. And we have to rethink it. Now, question is, where did we go wrong? What happened? This was an idea rooted in freedom for ordinary people and dignity, right? And suddenly we are living in this world. I believe it's a narrow understanding of what it means to be human. If you've ever taken an economics class, one of the foundational assumptions of economics is that we are Homo economicus, that we are economically rational, value-maximizing beings. That everything we do, we look through the lens of how much is it in it for me and how can I maximize for me at all times. Short-term, individualistic, materialistic. Okay? Is that human beings? Is that who we are? Calculating creatures at every instant? It's not an accurate picture. We are the species known as Homo sapiens. We are the most successful species in the history of this 4.5 billion year history of this planet. Okay, we are the one among many hominoid species. Why did we survive and rise to the top? Because we have some unique qualities. Yes, we are self-interested. We all have a duty to take care of ourselves, right? That's not a bad thing. Self-interest is good. Selfishness is not, right? So yes, self-interest is part of us, but we are also self-aware. We are conscious. See, every other creature lives by instinct, right? They don't make any choices. But we are aware of ourselves and our surroundings, and we can see a bigger and bigger picture as we wake up and become more conscious. What does it mean to be conscious? Well, if unconscious means this room is completely dark and I don't know anything. I can't see anything, right? I'm not conscious of the reality around me. Now, if I light a match, I become conscious of a little bit. If I have a flashlight, I can extend my consciousness. If I turn on all the lights, I can see the whole picture. But this is not the whole world, right? There's much more out there. So I become more and more aware. And we are capable of that, no other species, right? We are rooted in love. Love is fundamental to what it means to be a human being. The giving and receiving of love is the most fundamental quality. In fact, I believe every single thing that human beings do and should come from love. Not fear, not greed, not anger. Okay? And that's what makes us happiest and most impactful when we're operating from love. We are altruistic. We do things without expecting anything in return. So many times. It's not always I do this and you do that for me, right? You scratch my back. No, you need something, I'm going to do it for you, right? We are incredibly cooperative. The whole world of economics is based on competition alone and scarcity, right? It's all about winning, one winner and many losers, right? We are the most cooperative species. I mean, yeah, bees cooperate at an extraordinary level, ants cooperate, but we do that at a much different way, in a conscious way. They do it in a programmed way. Right? But we can cooperate, hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people, even billions of people can cooperate. Okay, if we set it up in the right way. And that's why we achieve what we achieve. And increasingly we are purpose-driven, and I'm going to come back to that, right? For most of human history, we were struggling to stay alive. When you don't have enough food to last until tomorrow, you don't have a purpose other than stay alive and keep my children alive. But fortunately, more and more of us are now able to live at a level where we can think about some of these deeper things. Why am I here? Right? Why am I here? There have been 117 billion humans on this planet. 8 billion are here today. 109 have died. Okay? Every one of them is unique. And every one of them can think about why am I here? And what is my journey in this lifetime? What am I meant to contribute? So again, that's a deeper picture of a human being. Everything we do should be founded on that assumption, not Homo economicus. But the fact is we've created a world of business that is based on Homo economicus. And hence we have said, well, if people are maximizing their own utility, then companies should be doing that too. Profit maximization is the only purpose of business. Milton Friedman had that famous essay in New York Times in 1970. The only social responsibility of business is to increase its profits. And everybody said, oh my God, he's a Nobel laureate economist. That's like God has spoken, right? We must all do this. It really became a turning point, starting in the 70s. Businesses became obsessively focused just with shareholder value and profits. And you can see that actually it hasn't worked. In that period of time, return on assets, which is a good measure of profitability, has actually declined. Even as we become obsessed with profits, our ability to generate profits goes down. It's like if you become obsessed with happiness and all you do is go to a party every day and get drunk. Because I want to be happy, right? You're not going to be happy. Okay? So, single-mindedly pursuing shareholder value has failed. Even on its own narrow terms, it has not created more shareholder value or profits, and it has created tremendous damage and suffering in the world for customers, for employees, for communities, for the planet, for other species. So I believe we need to celebrate capitalism because it has done so much, this idea for us. But we also need to elevate it with higher consciousness. The consciousness of the user determines what happens with a tool. Right? Somebody can use a knife to kill you and a surgeon can use it to save your life. Capitalism is the most powerful tool we've ever designed. The consciousness of the user therefore matters all the more. The bigger the power, more tool, the more the consciousness of the user matters. And today we find the higher you go in the organization, the lower the consciousness. Lower the emotional intelligence, lower the spiritual intelligence as you go higher. This is like empirical research that has shown. Okay, CEOs have the lowest level of emotional intelligence. And by the way, the most psychopathic behavior, the number one profession with psychopaths is CEOs. Second is surgeons. Okay? Scary. Because why? You have to be single-minded and just focus on that outcome, right? And everything else doesn't matter, right? I get the job done. Doesn't matter how. That's not okay. How you do things matters as much as what you get done. If you don't do this, we will destroy it. There's no guarantee that once you have arrived at capitalism, that's the end of the journey, mission accomplished. No, you can slide back. It's happened 38 times. Venezuela being the most recent, Cuba, and all of Eastern Europe, many other countries, Vietnam, right? Korea. It slides back towards socialism, communism, Marxism, some kind of dictatorship. And we're seeing signs of that, right? You see Chile and Colombia and Bolivia and Mexico and many countries, the rise of populism, and those street protests. Chile was the most free market economy in the world under Pinochet, who actually was educated by Friedman, right? I mean, all of his economic team came from Chicago, right? But you're seeing the limits of that. So again, it can be destroyed, okay? And we need to hold on to this because we know what life is like under those regimes, under those systems, right? There's no innovation and there's no human freedom, and life is hellish. So we have to protect this. But business as usual is not an option. We need to rethink everything. Why do we exist? Who are we? How do we do it? Right? What's our role as leaders? How do we define success? All of these, we need new answers to these timeless questions. And that's where conscious capitalism comes in. The four fundamental questions are the why, what, who, and how of anything. And we need new answers. The lower consciousness answer was profit for why. Now we need to say, no, there's a higher purpose. Everybody in this room has a higher purpose for your life. You just haven't figured it out yet, perhaps. Some of us have tried. Every company needs to have that too. I'll come back to that. What do? We create value for everybody, not just for shareholders or for customers. Right? So that's the stakeholder integration. And who are we as leaders? Not just people who get the results, the numbers, but we care about the people. We care about the purpose. We are here to take people to a better place and create a better future for all of us. And how does it feel to work here? Most businesses have a lot of fear and stress, high levels of burnout, low levels of engagement. We have cultures where people feel trust and care and authenticity. They can be who they are and they love going to work. That's how it should be, right? So those are the four pillars, and I'll talk briefly about each of them, starting with purpose. And I have an acronym for each, so healing is the acronym here. Now here's a radical sounding statement. The purpose of business is not to make a profit. That sounds like a communist thing to say. The purpose of business is to produce profitable solutions to the problems of people and the planet. The focus is on solutions. We need to be solving problems. We cannot be part of the problem, we need to be part of the solution. Very often we are part of the problem. We are adding to the problems of people and the planet. We are burning people out, we are creating health epidemics, we are damaging the environment, right? We need to produce profitable solution. Now, if you cannot produce a profitable solution, then maybe the government has to do it, or maybe nonprofits have to do it. We still need to solve those problems, even if there's no profitable way to do it, right? That's why we have 2 million NGOs in the world. So the problems need to be solved. Ideally, you do it through business because that makes it scalable and sustainable. You're not relying on donations or subsidies. That's the magic of business. It's infinitely scalable and sustainable if you do it in the right way. If you do it in a conscious way, business has no limits. So I believe every great purpose is a healing purpose. Why healing? We live in a world which still has a lot of suffering. Yeah, we made all that progress, but 1 billion people still don't have access to clean water every day. 3 billion people still live on less than $5 a day. 17,000 children die every day of preventable causes. Right? We have a lot of suffering in this world. Okay? And the only answer to suffering is healing. Every one of us can think of ourselves as a healer. So I wrote a book called The Healing Organization with 25 stories of companies that are doing that, right? What does that mean? Reduce suffering and bring more joy into the world through your business. Can you think about your business in those terms? What kind of a suffering exists and how am I reducing it and how am I actually bringing joy? Because that's what makes life worth living, right? And then enabling healthy growth. It also stands for the qualities of a great purpose. It's heroic. You're trying to do something that is not easy. It's going to stretch you to your limits. But it is going to change the world in some way, in your part of the world. Okay? You will be challenged and you will have to take some risks. It's evolutionary. As the world changes, as the company evolves, the purpose can also evolve. Most importantly, it aligns everybody together. See, if you don't have a higher purpose, then the purpose is profit. Right? So when this company says our purpose is profit, when customers say, okay, my purpose is lowest price every time, employee wants the highest pay, least amount of work, suppliers want the highest margins, society wants to tax you as much as possible, everybody becomes a taker because they all have their own purpose defined in terms of how much can I take? What is in it for me? Now, no system can thrive if every part of that system is saying, how much can I take? Right? Now, when you have a higher purpose and shared values, then everybody is a contributor, right? Investors believe in it. Your employees are passionate about your purpose. Customers care about it. Investor communities, etc. Right? Everybody is now saying, "How can I contribute?" And that's what makes the system thrive. It's rooted in love. Everything in conscious capitalism comes back to that. Right? Our work is an expression of our love. I think Khalil Gibran said, right? Work is love made visible, if you do it the right way. Business is a way to scale our loving impact into the world, an expression of our care. What is love? It's unconditional regard for the well-being of the other without expecting anything back. Can our business be an expression of that? I believe it needs to be. It's inspiring. It gets me excited to go to work. It's in harmony with nature and it's grounded in practical realities. Whole Foods, company I know well, their purpose, 1978. We want to educate people that what you are putting into your body makes a difference to your health, but also the health of the food system and ultimately the health of our planet. And so that purpose still is critical in the world. Improve the health of people, the food system, and the planet. Nourish the body and the planet at the same time. Google, the founders wrote down this purpose even before they started the company. Organize the world's information and make it easily accessible and useful. Think about the life we had before Google. One day my daughter, I had a question and she got me the answer, right? In 1/3 of a second, it seemed. And then she said, "Dad, what did you guys do in the old days?" And I honestly couldn't remember. I said, "Oh my God, I don't know. We went to the library or we called somebody or we just lived in blissful ignorance," okay? You don't have to know everything, but imagine this has created a $1 trillion company. And most of us have never received a bill from Google for that, right? So, by the way, how am I doing on time? Because this is dangerous. I could go on all day. Somebody's timing me? No? Wow. I should be another 15 minutes or so. So that's the first pillar, higher purpose. Second is stakeholder integration. And here the acronym is SPICY. Now, why SPICY? You know, I come from India, right? And India, everything is about the spice. Your food has spice, but your laundry detergent has spice, and your shampoo has spice, right? It's all about life. Is like, what is life without spice? And by the way, how did this part of the world get discovered? What was Columbus looking? Where was he trying to go? Columbus was trying to get to India, right? And he bumped into the New World. He was trying to get some spices. But joking aside, SPICY stands for the stakeholders in the right order. It starts with society. We have to be on the right side of society, right? We have a lot of suffering, right? People living in really terrible conditions. Or they're living, I was just in Panama, you know, where at this bank they were saying that people were commuting 2.5 to 3 hours each way, every day, because they couldn't afford to live nearby, right? So they're spending 5 hours in the car every day, right? I mean, society, people suffer. Can we create peace and prosperity through commerce? We can. Partners, including our suppliers, what do most companies do? They squeeze them. They pay them as little as possible and as late as possible. Can we actually have co-destiny relationships with our suppliers? Win-win. Investors who only care about returns versus investors who care about the impact of their investments and the legacy that they're creating through those investments. Customers, we call them consumers in economics and in marketing. I'm a professor of marketing, by the way, used my PhD. And I was really ashamed in a way that all we're doing is selling people junk that they don't need and charging them as much as we can. We're making them unhealthy and unhappy. Can we treat them with love and care and focus on the quality of their life and their well-being should matter to us. Employees who are disengaged and disconnected and unhappy versus people who are excited and passionate and loving and joyful at work. And an environment that we have been steadily destroying. The estimate is that nature gives us about $40 trillion worth of value every year. All the natural systems out there, right? The birds and the bees and the butterflies. You don't get a bill from the bees for all the pollination that they do, right? There are places in China now where people are doing the pollination because the bees are gone. Imagine the consequences of that, right? So nature gives us 40 trillion a year and we are destroying that base that generates that much value for us. You know, like $5-6 trillion a year we're destroying the base of nature. So an environment that we're destroying versus one that we are not only doing no more harm, but we're restoring and replenishing. That's the beauty of nature. It's very resilient. Once we give it some love and wisdom, I'm sure you all have examples of that, the systems bounce back. It's happening in our farm in India. My brother inherited it, and it was devastated. He said, when I went there a few years ago, there's no birds, there's no bees, there's no butterflies, there's no earthworms. It's all gone, he said. All we have are monkeys and people because of the chemicals and the pesticides and the fertilizer. And now he's created a biodynamic farm, and they're all back. Birds are back, bees are back, It can replenish and restore. And then all these stakeholders are connected with each other. It's a system, right? So Whole Foods has their purpose and values. They hire employees who are foodies, who care about health. They treat them well, pay them well. They treat their suppliers well, so they get good quality products, great service from their employees, great new ideas, innovations. Customers are happy and delighted. They're coming back. Sales are growing. Profits are growing. Investors are very happy, right? And then you can do things in the world that you care about. Whole Foods has 5 different foundations. Because they know that's not just about what they sell in the store. There are things that they have to do to change the system overall. So they have a whole planet foundation that does micro-lending to small farmers, mostly women, 95% women, in 65 countries, to help them transition from chemical-based to natural and organic agriculture. They have the whole Cities Foundation to bring healthy food into inner cities, food deserts. They have the whole Kids Foundation to bring healthy lunches into schools and create salad bars and organic vegetable gardens. And they have the Global Animal Partnership to reduce the amount of suffering of animals in the food system, the factory farming. Animals are kept in cages and injected with hormones and fed an unnatural diet. We are torturing animals to feed our appetites. 80 billion a year. Okay, it's not okay. So they've done a lot, right? So again, it's like a virtuous cycle. It keeps going when you think about it in that way. But it's like a clock. It only goes clockwise, okay? You can't make it go the other way. Son, we'll focus on profit maximization, and then we'll give bonuses at the end of the year to employees, and we will donate to worthy causes. No, you have to do the things that create value first, and then you harvest that value. Okay, third pillar is leadership. This is what Peter Drucker had to say about leadership, the well-known management thinker. There are only 3 things that happen naturally in organizations. There's friction, there's confusion, and there's underperformance. Okay? Everything else takes leadership. You could take the most thoughtful, caring, conscious, compassionate people, put them in a room, come back an hour later, what will you find? Friction, confusion, underperformance. Until somebody steps into the role of leader. Somebody takes on the awesome responsibility of leadership. To say, what can we accomplish together that we can't accomplish alone? What's the vision for what is possible? A great leader can see beyond the horizon and imagine a future that others can't. And how do we get there? What's the strategy? So leadership is as important as ever, even though human beings today are more intelligent, more educated, more conscious, more loving. All of that is true. Still need leadership. Because leadership matters. Better leaders make for a better world. As simple as that. And bad leaders can destroy what has taken decades or even centuries to build, can be destroyed. The fact is, leadership is not just about what happens 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or whatever our work hours are. The way we lead impacts the way people live. If I'm commuting 5 hours and working 10 hours, how am I going to be with my children? Will I be there with them? Will I know them, right? I mean, how can I be as a spouse in a relationship? My life is impacted by what we do at work, right? So leadership is the stewardship of the lives entrusted to us. In a way, it's like parenting. Good leadership and good parenting are very similar. This is Senator Raphael Warnock from Georgia. He's also the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where Martin Luther King used to be the pastor. This is what he had to say about leadership. You cannot lead the people unless you love the people. I want you to reflect on that for a second. Can you lead people if you don't care about them? Yeah, you can give them orders. You can threaten them with consequences. But can you really lead them? Will they do great things for you? And if you want your people to love you, you have to love them first. Genuinely care about them. You cannot lead the people unless you love the people, and you cannot love the people unless you know the people. And you cannot know the people unless you walk among the people. How many leaders actually know what life is like at the entry level of their own organization? What the working conditions are, what the bathrooms look like, where people eat, how they commute, where they live. You have no idea. The amount of suffering that's out there in our own companies is extraordinary. Most companies, not every company, okay? So we have, as a leader, you have to be conscious and aware, and then when you become aware, then you will change that experience for your people. The acronym here is selfless. Why selfless? The opposite of selfless is selfish. Now, you cannot be a selfish human being and call yourself a leader. Because that means you're going to look at all the people you lead and say, wow, I can use all these people to achieve my personal goals. And for a selfish human being, those are rooted in power and money and the ego. That is not a leader. That is the definition of a tyrant. A tyrant uses other people to fill their own ego-based needs. And there's no limit to that. Your ego will never get satisfied. Okay? A true leader is there to serve, to take people to a better place. Their deepest satisfaction comes from the impact they have. As we say, you measure success by the way you touch the lives of others. That is really what leads to true happiness for human beings. Did I make a difference in this world? Positively impact the lives of others. You have to go beyond self-actualization to self-transcendence. You have to find yourself, and then you have to lose yourself in service of something greater than yourself. Those are truly conscious leaders. And then it stands for the qualities. You have to be strong. So one of the hardest things that we can do as a human being is to be in a leadership role. And it takes a lot of strength and courage, immoral courage, to do the right thing, even when it's hard, which it always is. If you're trying to do the right thing, it is always hard. Jimmy Carter, the former president of the US, just turned 100 a week ago. And I'm reading a biography of him, and he always tried to do the right thing, even when it hurt him politically. And that happened many, many times. That's why he didn't get reelected. But he did a lot of extraordinary things for the world in those 4 years. You have to have moral courage, and you have to have personal power, not positional power. See, you get power by having a title. But as soon as the title is gone, you have no power. It's like a balloon. You take out the air, and there's this much, nothing left. But true leaders, conscious leaders, have personal power from within. You can give me a title or take away a title. Doesn't make any difference. I still have power. Gandhi, you all know about Gandhi from India? Yes, you heard of Gandhi? Gandhi never had a title. He was never elected to anything. He was never the head of any organization, and yet he had world-changing power. The end of colonialism, right? And many other social changes that he brought about. He was 5 feet 2 inches tall, and he weighed 94 pounds before a hunger strike. Okay? After the hunger strike, it was even more. And yet he changed the world at the end of the British Empire, right? So we can cultivate our own personal power, knowing who we are, what's my purpose, what are my values, what am I willing to die for, how do I purify myself, how do I strengthen myself. Energy and enthusiasm, you have to have that to sustain the tension between where we are and where we are trying to get to. The leader has to keep that, If he leads that, then nothing moves, right? You have to be rooted in love. There's that word again. Strength and love must go together. See, strength without love is tyranny. And love without strength is ineffective. You need both. In the last century, we had many leaders who were very strong. Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Mussolini, many, many leaders. Incredibly strong and almost destroyed human civilization and killed tens of millions of people. The leaders who have changed the world for the better are those that combine love and strength. Lincoln, Gandhi, Mandela, King. Very strong and rooted in love. That's what changes the world for the better. That's what changes countries and companies for the better. Combination of strength and love. We need to be flexible to have the right approach for every given situation. We need to be taking a very long-term perspective, not just thinking the next quarter, the next year, or how long am I going to be the CEO, thinking about beyond your tenure as a leader, even beyond your lifetime. The decisions you make today, some of them could have consequences 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now. In the Iroquois Confederacy in the northeast part of the US, the indigenous population, their rule for their chief was you have to think about the next 7 generations. Potentially, what are the consequences of today's decisions on the next 7 generations? If you, to the extent that you can, think about what is the long-term impact, right? And then we have to cultivate these other forms of intelligence. We are all born with analytical intelligence, IQ. You can test an IQ of a 3-year-old, and when that same kid becomes 50 years old, it'll pretty much be the same IQ. It can only go down a little bit as we age. But emotional intelligence can grow. We are born with almost zero, and we can become brilliant, right? Self-awareness and interpersonal awareness. Emotional intelligence, systems intelligence, understanding how things are connected and interdependent. And spiritual intelligence, understanding the role of meaning and purpose in your life and the lives of the people that you lead. So conscious leaders are whole human beings. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you integrate masculine and feminine energy within you. Carl Jung said every man has an inner woman, every woman has an inner man. What does that mean? All of us come from a mother and a father. There's mother energy and father energy inside all of us. But we have a world that is only run on father energy. Do you agree? It's all the masculine energy, right? Strength, courage, focus, resilience. When you don't have feminine, what happens? It becomes domination, aggression, hyper-competition, winning at all costs. Everything becomes a damn war in the absence of feminine energy. We need to become whole. Well, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. Right? So as Martin Luther King said, we must be tough-minded and tender-hearted. You can't say that, you're tough and you're tender. No, we all need to be both. You agree? And we can be. We've been enculturated to be one way. If you're a girl, you're supposed to be like this. And no, we all need to be both, strong and loving. The last pillar is culture, and here the word is tactile. What does the word tactile mean? It's something that I can feel, right? Now, culture is intangible and invisible. And yet, when I walk into a container store, a Patagonia, a Whole Foods, a Southwest Airlines, a Trader Joe, and all these conscious companies, I can feel the energy. I can feel the sense of purpose. I can feel the air of excitement. I can feel the love. It's very tangible, right? And that energy is what makes everything happen. It stands for the qualities of a great culture, conscious culture. As you can see, trust, accountability, care. And again, that word caring. It's about love. Accountability and caring need to go together, right? If you just have accountability, you deliver the results no matter what, that becomes very harsh. But if you only have caring and you don't have accountability, it's like people never deliver. They don't keep their promises. You need a culture of both, right? These are polarities that need to exist together. It's like parenting. You can't just be always loving and say yes. Sometimes you have to be tough love, right? So I'm going to focus on that word caring because that's the ultimate differentiator. Traditional businesses are only built on self-interest. Conscious businesses are built on self-interest, love, and purpose. It's like a 3-legged stool instead of a 1-legged stool. 1-legged stools are not very stable. Okay? And the idea of love. This is the question that was asked by the founders of Whole Foods. Can we build a business on love and care? Because we look around and most of our friends who work at companies, they seem to be experiencing a lot of fear and stress. In the US, we use a metaphor called carrots and sticks. How do you motivate people to do what you want? You use carrots and sticks, right? Here's an incentive and here's a threat. Well, what animal belongs between a carrot and a stick? It's a jackass. It's a donkey, not a human. We don't treat people like donkeys. Human beings do their best work when they are inspired from within, not when they are threatened or bribed from outside. Okay? Nothing great ever gets done with those mechanisms. Everything great that a human being does comes from the spirit and the heart. But we have this institution called Thank God It's Friday. Do you have that here? In the US, it's a restaurant chain, TGIF. You have it? Or you've seen it, right? Now, nobody ever questions this. Of course you thank God it's Friday. Oh my God, you survived another hellish week at work. Now it's Friday night. Oh, it's like, okay, where's the alcohol, right? And you do it, you wake up with a hangover, but the Saturday evening you're ready to go again another time, right? And then Sunday comes around. Sunday evening, and now it's like, oh boy. And then Monday morning happens. What happens on Monday morning? In the US and in the UK, heart attacks are 20% higher on Mondays. 4 a.m. Monday morning is the peak of emergency calls to the hospitals. Okay? In Sweden, it's 33%. And I did notice, and this is very common, by the way, everywhere I show this slide, people start laughing. And I believe it's the saddest slide I have. Why do people laugh? I was puzzled by that, and then I realized people laugh because what they really want to do is cry. But they can't. And therefore we laugh to protect ourselves. Because we don't want to think about that. Do you agree? It's too painful. Our work is literally killing us. Jeffrey Pfeffer of Stanford has this book a couple of years ago, Dying for a Paycheck. He estimated that 120,000 Americans die from stress connected to their work. Not the work itself. The work is generally more safe today than in the past. But the way we lead, manage, and organize creates so much stress that people die early. In China, they had to invent a new word called guaolaozi, which means death from overwork. The estimate is 600,000 Chinese every year. There's also a Japanese word for this too. Think about that. The next time you buy a product that says made in China and it's only like $6, you said, wow, how did they do that? Well, guess what? The real cost is not factored in. The largest cost in what we do is the cost of suffering, human and animals. Right? When you buy chicken for $2 a pound, what's the suffering of that animal? You're not paying for that, right? Or the suffering of our planet. So we're not incorporating the real cost that exists. Do we have to kill people to make money? Is that the bargain we have here? My book, The Healing Organization, is a whole 300-page argument against that. We can make people stronger, happier, healthier at the end of the day. Not only are they not burning out, they're getting charged up. Okay, fully charged through their work. So if the work doesn't kill you, it bores you to death. Most people are disengaged. US has the highest level of engagement at 32%. That's not anything to celebrate. 68% of people don't care about their job. Worldwide, engagement is 23. Does that mean that we are living in a world filled with lazy people? No, it's a failure of management. We have not inspired people. We haven't given them work that is meaningful, that uses their full humanity. We're making them work like robots or doing demeaning work, right? And this has a huge financial cost, all that lost productivity. And of course, best practice organizations have much higher levels of engagement. Conscious companies actually are more like 90% engagement, right? So this is a financial drain, but I think more than that, it's a human tragedy. Work is an important part of a human life. We're the only species we work when we don't have to. There are many people in the world who have enough money. It's not about the money. It's about the impact, the legacy, right? The fulfillment I get from what I do. And as Freud said, love and work and play are the cornerstones of our humanness. And we've created a world in which you're supposed to love at home, work in the office or the factory, and play with your friends somewhere else. And my question was, why can't we combine these things? Why can't we love what we do, love the people we work with, love the people we serve, and why can't work be fun? Why does it have to be grim? And so that was the basis of my research. That's how I got into this whole world. After being a frustrated and unhappy marketing professor for 20 years, okay, I was ashamed of being a marketing professor. I got my PhD at Columbia, the #1 marketing PhD program in the world, okay, Columbia University. And I became a marketing professor and I used to cringe. My father got a PhD in agriculture science. He wanted to cure world hunger. And then I get a PhD in marketing. I just want to sell you more junk that you don't need. Okay? I didn't feel it was noble. I didn't have a sense of fulfillment, which is why I went on a search for, is there a better way to think about business and marketing? We were spending $1 trillion a year on marketing in the US in 2004. Now it's 1.4 trillion. But in 2004, $1 trillion, $1,000 billion, okay? The GDP of India was 700 billion that year. And that's 1 billion people living on less than what we're spending on ads and coupons and junk mail. And what is that getting us? We're cutting down forests to send you an ad for an air refreshener that you put directly into the garbage. It's craziness. I said there must be a better way to think about business. And by the way, that's an important question. Is there a better way? What is the answer? For anything that you ask that question, the answer is always yes. I don't care if you're living in Shangri-La, there's still a better way. There's always a better way. There's no limit to human ingenuity and creativity and coming up with better ways to do things, right? So is there a better way? And that led me to a search for businesses that are loved by everybody. Customers love them, employees love them, etc. Right? Initially, it started with customers because I was coming from a marketing background. I said, okay, which are the companies that customers love and they have high levels of loyalty and trust, and they don't spend a lot of money on ads and coupons and junk mail. Loyalty and trust, the opposite. They spend a ton of money and their customers are not loyal and not trusting. You cannot buy love. Can you buy love? No. And that's what companies are doing. They're spending billions of dollars on ads and coupons and junk mail. And yet customer loyalty is going down. Customer trust, you have to bribe you with a coupon every day. I said, what's the opposite of that? Which are the companies that customers love and you don't spend all that money? And I found a bunch of companies like that, about 6 in the beginning. Whole Foods was one of them. They spend 95% less than the industry average on marketing, and yet they had the highest level of customer loyalty and trust. I said, wow, how are you doing that? And then I found the employees are equally loyal and trusting. Suppliers are loyal and trusting. Communities embrace these companies, right? So they're in a system of loyalty and trust and in strong relationships, that they care about the well-being of all of their stakeholders. And what makes that happen? They've got a sense of purpose. All these 4 pillars came out of that research. What makes companies loved by everybody? You have a purpose and core values, that you are like a magnet that attracts the right customers and the right employees and the right investors who all believe in that. Those values and that purpose is part of their life too. And now your work becomes an extension of who you are. If I'm a foodie who cares about health, well, working at Whole Foods is like Disneyland, right? I mean, I get to do what I am born to do. If I'm an outdoor enthusiast and I love to go hiking and camping, I work at Patagonia, my God, work is like a vacation. I don't need a vacation. You see what I mean? So these are the words people use to describe, hence the name of the book, Forms of Endearment, which comes from that movie, Terms of Endearment. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. It will make you cry, but in a good way. So I found these 28 companies that fit this profile. Okay, 4 pillars. Everybody loves them. Then I said, okay, how do they do financially? You know, many business books, they start with high-performing companies, and then they say what made them perform so well, and they say, okay, level 5 leadership and blah, 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 whatever it is, right? Good to great. I started the other way. I started with companies that are loved by everybody. I said, okay, do they actually make money? Can you survive on love in this world? We don't think so, right? We're told business is a dog-eat-dog world. Only the paranoid survive. It's not personal, it's business. You see the movie Godfather? So the Godfather gets somebody killed, and then later the son of that man comes to the wedding of his Godfather's daughter, right? And he puts his arm around him and said, I hope you don't take it personal, it's just business. I had to kill your father. Yes, Godfather. We think about business that way, right? It's not, have you heard the expression, it's not personal, it's business? I'm sorry, everything is personal. Organizations consist of organisms, humans. Everything is personal, okay? So I said, okay, they're operating on love and they're paying their people very well, like Costco, which is an American retailer, paying double of Walmart to their entry-level people, providing 95% of healthcare, paying their suppliers well, investing in their local communities, investing in the environment, and paying taxes at 34% on average across these companies, when overall average is 10%. So I said, wow, they're spending a lot of money in a lot of things. Maybe they don't generate as much profit for investors, and maybe that's okay because you're creating so much well-being and happiness and value and flourishing in the world that it's okay you make a little less money. What we found was actually these companies outperformed the market dramatically. I was shocked. It was 9-1 over 10 years in the original set of 28 companies, 18 public. 9 times they returned 1,025% cumulative returns versus the market S&P was 125%. I said, how is that possible? And that's what the rest of our research was. Why is it that these companies make more money even though they're not trying to make as much money as possible? None of them say they're trying to maximize profit, and yet they're generating more profit. And profit is important. Profit is essential. Some people think being a conscious business means forget about profit. No, profit is essential. It is socially irresponsible not to be profitable. Because society does not function without corporate profits. Governments cannot create wealth. Governments can only tax and spend the wealth generated by a business. And then we have infrastructure and hospital, all the things that we want in society, right? So profits are essential, and these companies are highly profitable. But it matters how you make the money. Because you can make the money by squeezing people and damaging the health of your employees and the future of their children and destroying the environment and killing the bees. And what is that? That's not a business, that's a parasite. You haven't created any value. All you've done is suck the life force out of people and the planet to keep it for yourself. A true business creates value in the world. Okay? So it matters greatly how you make the money. Because businesses create but also destroy many kinds of wealth. It's not just financial, it's intellectual, all the innovations, right? It's cultural, social, it's how much trust we have in society. Emotional well-being, how much of my life is living with love and care versus fear and stress. Spiritual well-being, having meaning and purpose in my life through my work, right? The impact on the culture, what defines a good life? $1 trillion of marketing has a lot to say with what is a good life, right? Most of it is false. The impact on our bodies and the impact on the planet. And a conscious business strives to have a positive impact in all these areas for all of their stakeholders. And a traditional business says, well, we're all about making money, and therefore everything else is a side effect. As I mentioned earlier, there's no such thing on this planet called a side effect, okay? This is a convenient marketing thing. We call it side effects so people think it doesn't matter. In the US, if you ever watch the evening news, all the ads are from drug companies, okay? And they show these happy people running around in wildflowers and fields and, or sitting in a hot tub. It's about some condition and this medicine will miraculously cure you. And then at the end, half the ad is this could give you, cancer, it could give you, like a list of side effects, okay? Which are much worse than the original symptoms I'm dealing with. I'm sorry, there's nothing on this planet called a side effect. Just because you put it in small letters or you say it very fast doesn't make it less important. It could be the most significant outcome of your business. And we need to do business with a spectrum of positive effects, no more negative side effects, so-called. Economists call them externalities. What does that mean? You don't need to worry about it. It's outside the scope of your business, right? Yeah, you polluted the river and you put all that carbon in the air, but you don't need to deal with it. We have to deal with it. Imagine how you would design a car if the exhaust pipe of the car had to open inside the car. Okay? That's a law. Right? You can't make other people smell or be impacted, right? You have to live with it. So yeah, there's nothing outside effect. Can we do business with a spectrum of positive effects? And this kind of captures the sense of complacency a lot of people have, a lot of us have. All of us in this room are really on the high end of that boat, right? Our lives are relatively safe and comfortable. But there are billions of people struggling just to stay alive, stay above the water. The fact is that we are all in the same boat. This planet is one system. It's all connected. Climate change tells us that. The pandemic showed us that, right? And we have many holes in our shared boat. We all need to be thinking and acting with that consciousness. So now it's been for me a 20-year journey. I started the research on clones of India in 2004. And the more I study it, the more I realize it works, and it works for everybody, and that's important. Why does it work? Because sales are higher for per employee, per square foot in these companies. They grow at a faster rate based upon positive word of mouth. Happy and delighted customers are your best marketers. You don't need to buy ads, etc., right? Employees become your marketers. The media, everybody is now rooting for your success if you're this kind of company. Interestingly, you have lower gross margins but higher net margins. Now, how does that happen? When you pay your people more than your competitors, and when you pay your suppliers well, your gross margin goes down if you're selling for the same price, right? But then your net margin is higher. Why? Because if you look at all of the overhead expenses, the SG&A, marketing, employee turnover, right, HR, all of those things are much lower. Many of these companies are $0 on marketing, and their annual employee turnover, like Costco, is 7%, Walmart is 70%. Walmart has to hire 2 million people every year just to replace those who left voluntarily. Costco people join and never leave, and they become more and more effective and efficient, right? Which is why Costco can pay double of Walmart, and still their sales per employee are 3 times higher than Walmart. So their labor cost is even lower, even though they're paying double, right? And of course, the employees that you have are incredibly passionate and committed and innovative and engaged, right? One engaged employee can have an impact which is equal to 100 disengaged employees, positive impact in your business, right? Legal costs are lower. You do not sue people you trust. Administrative costs are lower. You don't need many managers telling people what to do, middle managers. People are self-organizing, self-managing, and self-motivating. And you're much more resilient in tough times like a pandemic or a financial crisis. And you have a commitment to inclusive flourishing. Everybody should thrive. So conscious capitalism as an idea and as a movement really incorporates a lot of things that have existed for a while, right? CSR was a big thing in the turn of the century, corporate social responsibility. ESG is big in the world right now. Shared value coming out of Michael Porter and Harvard, which is about society and shareholders being aligned in terms of value. Inclusive capitalism, which is about bringing in everybody. Stakeholder capitalism, ethic, and all of these, right? All of them are part of this. If you have this mindset, it includes all of those things, I believe, right? Because we talk about all the stakeholders. That includes society, that includes the planet, communities, customers, everybody. So the case for conscious capitalism is multifaceted. There's a societal case. If we do not do this, there will be more Venezuelas, okay? There will be more revolutions. This is about evolution, but if we don't evolve, there will be revolution. Okay? We better evolve. Planetary case, I don't think I need to emphasize that. Human case, the well-being of our people and their children and the future, and a business case, right? Financial. That's where conscious capitalism sits at the intersection of all of those. And too often in business, we begin and end with a business case. We need to have all of those others as well. Okay? Otherwise, it's going to cause more harm over time. And this sounds a little arrogant, but so far I haven't found a legitimate argument against this. Like, why would you not do this if it works? And there's empirical evidence and explanation, not just evidence, but explanation of why this works. Okay? If you care about the planet, if you care about people, if you care about society, if you care about profits, right? So in closing, traditional business is only about the head and the wallet. I was 6 years in business school, 2 years MBA, 4 years PhD. It was all about the head, all about the theories, the frameworks, the numbers, and everything always went to the bottom line. In my 6 years, I was never inspired once, and I was never emotionally touched a single time in 6 years of education, business education. Conscious business adds the heart and the spirit. And for me, the turning point was I was writing Firms of Endearment. I was in a writing retreat in Poconos in Pennsylvania. And I was writing some of the stories of these companies and what they did for their people and the children of their employees and so forth. And I was literally suddenly with tears in my eyes. I couldn't see my computer. I said, what's happening? I said, I have never experienced tears of joy connected to my work before that. You often experience anger and frustration and disappointment, but having tears of joy, your heart is filled with joy because something at work, that's a rare and precious thing. But you should aspire to that. We all should have tears of joy frequently at work. You should get hugged for what you do at work. Okay? Very few people have that. Everything human beings do should bring in the heart and the spirit. That's what makes us more human, right? Everything should have that. And therefore, my new acronym is WISH. This is what I wish for all of you, that you have the wallet, you got the intellect, but you also have the soul and spirit, and you have the heart all together in your work, through your work. And I believe as leaders, you're not just the chief executive officer, you are the conscious evolution officer. See, in biological terms, evolution happens over thousands or tens of thousands of years. Slowly we develop certain features, right? Through natural selection. Cultural evolution can happen overnight, very rapidly, 1,000 times faster. But it's conscious evolution. It doesn't just you sit there and wait for nature to take its course. You consciously evolve yourself and you evolve the organization. It's a way of doing business where everybody matters and everybody wins. If somebody is losing in our system, that means we have exploitation. We need to go back and rethink it. That's a fundamental commitment I would love for all of you to make today. Thank you for your attention and time. I don't know how long I took, but I hope this was helpful. Thank you.